Yeah, and shalom, everyone. Shalom. I want to welcome everyone to the house of the Lost Sheep of Israel. I'm Elder Michael Johnson, the pastor over here with the Lost Sheep of Israel, and also with King James Bible University. And today we have a very important teaching we're going to be going through. It's running a race for treasures. Storing up treasures where? That's the focus. But first, I do want to let people know that we did release the book. This week. Well, actually on yesterday. We'll see this here. It's on sale now to where you can get the unique Hebrew baby names. You can actually see that right now. It's over on it's on Amazon. And the reason why it's unique, most people don't know, when we went through the Atlantic slave trade and we came over, many of those names, you can actually go and see the names that's in this book. You'll see it also there. But what went on, many of those names was lost. So it's never used again to where you don't see them. That's one of the reasons these names is unique. But what I also did through this couple of years, I took those names and I took the time, and over the period, a little bit over 3 years, I end up putting all the meanings back to those names to where each and every person can see what these names are, how to pronounce them, and also what they mean. So you can go there, after the Sabbath or whenever you want to, you can actually find actual real Hebrew names, and you'll see exactly what was lost and what we're doing. We finding everything. We finding all our little treasures piece by piece. And you'll see that. And we also have a commercial actually with it. I'm going to put that up real quick to let you see that. But the main thing is, now it's available for you. And with that, we hope that everybody, if you getting ready to have a child, you know someone having a child, you can actually find actual ones. And same thing like I tell people all the time. You have people who create names, and they like to put this Yasharella stuff at the end, which I don't know where they get that from. I really don't. It's a crazy thing, but people like to put those there, which makes no sense. But what we want to do now, we want to look at this running a race for treasures, storing up treasures where? This we're going to find out something that's very serious and making sure we hold on to. So we're not going to sit there and go through this long drawn out thing, because today I want to make sure with everybody. Just running this race. And I want to speak to you. I want to speak to you as your friend, as a brother, to where I want to show you some things through this lesson here, to where we can see exactly what need to happen and what need to be done and what we're looking for. So what I want to do, I want to invite you over. We're not going to hold up a lot of things, but we want to go over here. We want to look at something. And I want you to look at Luke chapter 12. We're going to look at verse 32. We want to look at Luke 12, verse 34, I'm sorry. We want this one here. And this is where we're going to focus at. It says, "For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also." This is going to be extremely important. For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. Now, this coming out of the mouth of Yahushua or Jesus, if people choose to use that. But what we have to do, we have to tackle this. We have to look at this and see exactly what's going on. Because what I want to do is invite each and every one of us to a spiritual expedition on what we're going to do. And the way we got to unpack this, we got to start walking backwards. We got to walk backwards to understand where he's actually coming from. So the best place to start to unpack this, we're going to look at something. We're going to start in Sirach, chapter 5 and verse 1. And I'm going to explain things. I'm not going to try to go through things, because I've been reprimanded a bunch of times that sometimes I know I talk too fast, and I still personally don't think I talk too fast. That's just me. But when we have a lot of people say, "Elder Johnson, you talk fast." So if I talk fast to them, then evidently I talk fast. I just don't think I do, but if they say I do, I know I must do. So what we're looking at is this. It says, "Set not thy heart upon thy goods, and say not, I have enough for my life." So we're gonna unpack that. That is what we're gonna unpack, because we're gonna look at this from Sirach 5:1 to 5, and we're gonna see the dangers of treasures that's located on this earth versus what's in heaven. I'm going to say this again. We're going to look at the dangers of treasures that we have that's located on earth versus the ones that's in heaven. So with wealth on earth comes power, stubbornness comes. However, Sirach going to advise against acting on these impulses and making amends for the past sins. In the past, it cautions us to not put our trust in our riches and say that same thing. I have enough. I have enough. And that assists our spiritual journey. So I want you to do something, because this is what we're going to be doing a lot of. I'm going to ask you questions of certain things, and then you can put in based on what you see. But the main thing I want you to remember is this. I want you to think about something. So let's say this. Let's say we're playing a video game. The best way we can say it is just say we think we're playing a video game. and you amass a lot of points or rewards early on. Let's just say you got a lot of points or rewards early on. But if you stop trying to, because you think you have enough to win the game, you believe you have enough to win the game, you have a stronger possibility to lose at the end. It's the same thing with life. You can't simply rely on wealth and power and stop growing spiritually. This is the point. The same thing we'll see and hold on to, because we got to harness on the same metaphor of the video game that stirs towards the essence of the end of our spiritual journey. The same thing we'll see. We're going to go over here to 1 Peter. We're going to look at 4 and 18. In this, I want you to make sure you put it in your pocket. And I want you to put this in the back of your head. And I want everybody, after we read it, I'm going to ask everybody something to do. It says, and if, so it's saying including, if the righteous scarcely be saved, where shall the ungodly and the sinner appear? But if you sitting here saying you done store it up in your heart, you done lived this life thus far, you're cool, and you say you done did enough to where you think you're going to go into the kingdom, where did you base that from? In the Bible telling you, if the righteous scarcely be saved, where should the ungodly appear? Where did you get enough? So I'm going to ask this, and I want everybody to participate who's over here right now. And as what I'm doing is saying this. 1 Peter chapter 4, verse 18, and we're going to look at this again. Well, don't worry, we're going to come back to this, because this is going to be a focal point. I want everybody to keep this and say, I want everybody to promise me one thing as we go through this lesson. Promise me with an I or a nay. You promise me that you're going to keep this in the back of your head as we will go through this. Just with an I want you to promise me that you're going to keep that in the back of your head. So I'm going to wait before we move forward. And I just want to make sure you keep this in the back of your head. All right. So now what we're going to do, we're going to look at this. So we have to contemplate the essence of scarcely. So, and then within the context of salvation, we'll find it doesn't diminish on what they're saying there. It don't diminish what the focus is. So it don't diminish the assurance of deliverance for the righteous, but it illuminates the rigorous and the challenges. So we're going to go through a lot of rigors and challenges on this journey towards it. So with this in mind, admonishing us is not to rely on wealth or strength or cautioning against following our own desires, and is warning us about fleeing natures of time, meaning with wisdom coupled with this stark reminder. If it's hard for the righteous to be saved, what will become of the godly sinner? See, this making each and every one of us keenly aware that this difficult path that we're going to be treading on the pursuit of righteousness. So it focuses on what we have to do. It forces us to question. It forces us to think about what's really happening. If the righteous barely manage to get in, where does that leave those who are yet on the path, saying they have enough to get there? I want you to think about that. They're saying they have enough to get there, in the righteous scarcely going to make it in. So who told them that it was already there, that they have enough? See, the implications is clear. Complacency, it says indifference, and when we're looking at the options and this journey to salvation, the perseverance of unwavering faith, and that's guiding the way to the stars and everything else. So spiritually speaking, even one who seeks to follow God's commandments, I want you to understand what I'm saying. That's why I'm saying we're going to take our time. Spiritually speaking, even the ones who are seeking to follow God's commandments, live according to his will, still going to find the path to salvation, a challenging path, no matter what. You can't get out of this. It's a path, not a path for comfort or ease, but one that demands self-denial and perseverance. I want you to clearly get where I'm coming from. I want you to clearly see what I'm saying. And it involves trials and tribulations. Let's look at something. I want to show you why I say I want to talk to you as your brother. I want to talk to you as your brother because this we can't get around. In 2 Hebraist chapter 7, looking at verse 12, we'll see it right here. And it says, then were the interests of this world made narrow, full of sorrow and travail. There are but few and evil, full of peril and very painful. You see it here. You see it here. I'm going to couple this with something else. I want to couple this with something else to where we can have a conversation. In Matthew chapter 7, verse 14, he's telling us, Yahushua is saying, it says, because straight is the gate and narrow is the way, which leadeth unto life, and few there be that find it. You see this is an issue. We see what's going on. We see how this is really starting to play out. And as we move down, I want to couple one more with it. We're going to put 2 Hebraist chapter 7, verse 8. I'm going to put all these with it. It says, in one only path, it's only one path between them, between the fire and water, so small that but one man can go through at once. This is telling us. So when we're looking at this carnal worldly terms and this stark reminder, even if the righteous face difficulties on the path to salvation, the situation for the ungodly and those who ignore that actively reject God's commandments, mean they're not going to listen to God. They're not going to listen to Christ. They're not going to listen to Jehovah. Because it's going to be even more challenging for them because they already figured they have enough. Think about that. They saying they have enough. That's a problem. And when we sit there saying things like, oh, well, I have enough. How do you believe you have enough? In John chapter 10, verse 27, it's pretty clear to us. You see it here. Yahushua is saying this, and we know this is Jehovah speaking through him. My sheep hear my voice, I know them, and they follow me. I know them, and they follow me. His sheep hear his voice, and some will give up right there. Because those he don't want. Some don't, they're not going to hear his voice, because they already saying, I have enough. Those he don't want. That's what people really fail to realize. See, a lot of us really feel that God wants us so bad, he'll do anything. He'll come down and do all these crazy things that men has put in our heads. And that's not the truth. Those are not true things. So when we get to these untrue things, we feel we have enough. We have enough treasures that we have done to get them into the kingdom. But he tells you right up here, you have enough. He says, but he that shall endure unto the end, the same shall be saved. So if the righteous scarcely going to come in, how can you stand and say, I have enough? to get in. I want you to think about something. I want you to think about this. If a kid was doing homework every day, I want you to think about this. A kid was doing homework every day. So as this kid doing homework every day, it's the same as following the God's commandments. So the kid doing homework every day is the same as following God's commandments. Can sometimes this be challenging? You to make sacrifices with giving up playtime, because that's what this is doing. You got to give up your playtime. Sometimes the work is hard, but those who do their homework regularly, we're going to say the ones who always doing their work regularly, they're the righteous. They're more likely to pass the exam. And if they pass the exam, those are the ones that'll be saved. But then we have the other hand. The other hand, we have the ones who rarely do their homework. They have enough. They have enough. So they ignore it completely. These are the ungodly. But then when it's time to take the test, it's harder for them to pass. But I tell you what, let's up it up a little bit. Let's put it to these adults. So consider this process of achieving your degree. It's rigorous, it's demanding, it requires constant dedication over the process of time, over some years. But if you dedicate that, that's the path on righteous. Okay, that's the righteous path. Even with all your efforts, it's challenging, it's filled with obstacles. Now, in the imagery of trying to achieve this degree without putting in any necessary work or research, that's the path of the ungodly. And it becomes nearly impossible for you to pass to get that degree. The same silhouette picture, the same thing that we're looking at. This is why it's so important to make sure we really clearly get what we need to be doing. And Solomon, in Wisdom of Solomon chapter 3, we're looking at verse 5. And it's telling you right here, you see, we're going to go down to 7, but it says, and having been a little chastened, they shall greatly reward it. For God proved them and found them worthy himself. Look how he's saying this. As gold in the furnace hath he tried them, receives them as burnt offerings. As burnt offerings. And in the time of their visitation, they shall shine and run to and fro, sparks among stubble. This underscores the concept on what I was just telling you. Having been a little chastened, you're doing your homework every day. You're putting in this work. You're going to be greatly rewarded. It's telling you, it's right there. You greatly rewarded for putting in the work. Because God proved you to find you worthy for himself. So the righteous still have to face trials, just like gold in the furnace. They have to see what the purity is. We have to see what the purity was. So we have to take that out. So these trials is purifying, and it prepares them for the great rewards, much like a rigorous process, earning same thing like doctorate degrees, or you diligently doing your homework that leads to success. So this is why I say I want you to reflect on the path to salvation. This is what everyone say they on. Everybody say they on this path to salvation. It is not an easy one, even for the righteous. But it requires dedication, sacrifice, perseverance. But the rewards it promises are infinitely greater than any earthly prize. And we must ask ourselves if we were walking this challenging path. And if not, what steps can we take to correct the course? As we continue this spiritual growth, as the game continues to go back The same thing. I want to keep in. I got to go back to the same point that I said before. Cause I'm gonna keep this in front of you. I'm gonna keep pushing this back. In 1 Peter chapter 4, verse 18. Cause we can't change this. And if the righteous scarcely be saved, where should the ungodly and the sinner appear? As it declares, and the righteous scarcely be saved, where shall the godly and the sinner appear? Looking at this verse, even spiritually, is still profound truth. It presents the idea that even those who are righteously and living righteously, those who continue to play the game, nurturing their spiritual selves alongside the worldly ones, are barely saved. This aligns to winning the video game by a hair or breadth. If that's the case, what hope is there for those who cease playing the game because they say they have enough? They have amassed enough wealth, they have amassed enough power, so they start neglecting their spiritual growth. See, this reflects further on the gravity of this verse right here, 1 Peter. The verse serves as a profound, humbling reminder to each and every one of us. This passage is similar to this gentle whisper of the wind that blows in our souls, the stirring storm, questioning our spiritual readiness and our commitment. It underscores the razor-thin margin between the spiritual victory and defeat, comparable to winning the video game in a single pixel. Think about that. Imagine this. Imagine something. Let's say you're in the final moments of this game. You're in the final moments of this game, and you get this narrow victory promise to the righteous that is equivalent to overcoming the game's final boss with a silver of a heath like that is left. But spiritually, resolve tested it to the limits. In the exhaustion of the terrifying moments, the margin of error is 1 minute, but then the stakes are nothing less than spiritual salvation. So with this implication, here we have this deep and far-reaching, such as this plight to righteous. So who against all odds persevere in quest for the spiritual growth, then what those who have hated on their tracks, those who had chosen to cease playing. Remember those who cease playing the game. The rest is the illusion of safety that's provided by their immense wealth and the power of neglecting their spiritual growth. So where do they stand? Where do they stand in this divine game arena? Where do they stand now? That's the catch. So when we're looking at this for an individual and their focus, it can become skewed. So as if you're playing this high-stake game, but their eyes is not on the screen. They're distracted by the superficial glitter of the in-game rewards. In-game, what you see now, these are temporary rewards comparable to the same thing like we've been talking about. Wealth, power, is dazingly attractive. But their worth is fleeting and false. The true object of the game is not to accumulate all these rewards, but to nurturing the growth, nurturing the growth of spiritual self to progression of the player's character. That's your key. In the same way, we can expand on this, so we can consider people's interests by the game and the glitz and glamour. We focus and we divert from the path to victory. So same thing like a moth to a flame. There is a irresistible draw to the shiny, intermediate. They are immediate rewards. Their eyes are fixed on the brilliant allure in the game, wealth and power. But these are nothing more than really just short-lived imagery, dissipating like the end of the game. No difference. They're in the middle of the high-stake game, yet their glitz is misdirected. Their attention riveted, not on the screen, but on the dazzling glitter that has the temporary reward. They participate on the grand spiritual journey, but they're missing the purpose and the plot, the principle of their spiritual self. So, on this little digital dance as the game, playing characters, these are symbolic to the individual spirit, should involve and adapt and grow. But these same individuals, their spiritual character is neglected, overshadowed by the temporary thrill of accumulating wealth, power within the game. You see the point? The real victory in the game is life isn't the collection of such things, fleeing treasures, carrying these treasures around, but the nurturing and the expansion of one's spiritual self. That was the point the entire time. The entire time. I'll show you this to where we're going to get caught up again, to where we can't get around this. And we'll find this over here in Luke chapter 9. We're going to look at 9. And watch what Yahushua or Jesus says. Watch what he says. And he said unto them, take nothing for your journey, neither staffs nor scrip, neither bread nor money, neither have 2 coats apiece. Don't have 2 doctrines there. See the point? So people think, hey, is he talking out the side of his mouth? No. I'm just telling you based on what's here. The scripture is merely giving us a travel guide. So if we're going to be his disciples, this is the metaphor, the spiritual journey we have to undertake. So we can't get distracted by the little shiny things on the side to where we want to take those and immense them and take them with us. Now we got a whole bunch of stuff. Let me see. It was called the jerk. The jerk. Anybody remember the jerk? How he had went broke, and then as he was walking out, he was telling his wife he don't need nothing else. But I need this. I don't need nothing else. All I need is this. This all I need is it. But I need this. Remember that? He just went through and he kept doing that. This is what we do as we going through this spiritual journey. We doing the same. So we can't sit there and say something about him because we do it. But even the light, I'm going to show you something on this same biblical directive on what I want to show you. I'm going to show you this to where we can see this and we can see with ourselves. Found in Hebrews chapter 10, and we're going to look at this in verse 25. It says, not forsaking the assembly of ourselves together, as manner as some is, but exhorting one another, in so much that more as ye see the day approaching. But what is I'm saying here? Because this saying to exhort one another. You see it right there. To exhort one another. Not to do that. So we can see this becomes a thought-provoking paradox. To where we observe the masses of people whose coveraging in a conversion in one place, yet seemingly to lack the very essence of this divine command that's right here. Because I'm going to take this part out. But he's telling you right here. He's very clear right here. It says, but exhort one another. This is the essence of divine command. The essence of gathering is not merely physical presence, but spiritual bonding. And the unity is forged through mutual edification and encouragement. Actually, just what you're getting right now. That's what you're coming together for. To get edification and encouragement. Not giving up meeting together, which carries a profound spiritual implication beyond just physical congregation, but it calls upon members of a kingdom, not merely to gather, but to actively engage, uplift, inspire one another in faith and love. Therefore, even in the midst of a crowd, if the spirit of exhortation is absent, we were truly adhering to the divine command, which was merely marking what people even think that was physical. The pressing question becomes this. It becomes this: the gathering. In our gathering, we are truly embodying the essence and exhorting one another right now, as true members of the kingdom should. Do you think that? Or do you look at storing up treasures here on earth? That's the game. That's the game they play. So if we truly thrive to be in this game called life, we must understand the character and level up. We got to trust in the divine game master provisions. The game master, which I'm talking about, the Most High God. We got to understand what his provisions are, to where we keep a focus on the real objective, not getting distracted by the short-lived but dazzling in-game rewards. Oh, let's come to this beautiful edifice. Let's come here. Let's do that. Let's do this. Let's amass money. Let's do this. Let's do that. Don't get caught up in those. You're being encouraged because you're here to do a game. You don't want to get confined into a pen. A pen, meaning like how they keep pigs and animals. You don't want to get confined in that, same as a building. Our hearts, our focus should be on the spiritual journey, not on the superficial glitter. The reward is not this acquisition, but the spiritual growth and the maturity we gain along the way. So as we continue, we're going to build on this spiritual game metaphor. This is what we got to build on. We got to understand how this works. We got to understand what's going on. We got to see how this works. So if we can picture life, the grand spiritual marathon, life, the grand spiritual marathon, what we want to do, it's a divine game. One where the aim to miss the shiny, the end-game rewards, but to achieve the growth and to rely on spiritual support from Jehovah himself. That's the end game. This notion of life is as a marathon that directly hits us straight to heart. Meaning this. Let's take something. Let's look at something. We're going to look at Hebrews chapter 12 and verse 1. Same as we said. Wherefore, seeing we also are compassed about with so great a cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight and the sin which do easily beset us, and let us run with patience the race that is set before us. The in-game language, the verse that signifies the spiritual weight compares to the heavy game of armor, slows us down in this marathon. So the more stuff we accumulate, the more we get weighted down. This path of life. It implies that we should shed the unnecessary weight, any hindrances like sin that allures us fleeing, meaning this in-game reward, this stuff we're going to be carrying that we can dither from our journey in this spiritual growth. This telling us right here. So this telling us. This speaks to the heart of a seasoned player. This is the heart of a seasoned player. This verse paints the picture of a stadium filled with spectators. That's what this is doing for us. That's why it says that so great a witnesses. So it's just like we in this place, as spectators, this cloud of witnesses observing our progress in the game. So these spectators is reminiscent of the past, the present, the future influences that shape our spiritual journey. As players, we are urged to shed the weight and sin that impedes us. Compared to shedding heavy weights, cumbersome and armor, same thing with the game that slows down the progress. Exactly the same thing. So the marathon, the game of life, isn't a sprint. The game of life, I'm going to say it again, it's not a sprint. It's about who can collect the most power-ups the fastest. It's not about that. This is what people do. They thinking they can power up something pretty quickly. Oh, yeah, I can get this. But who can sustain their pace and persevere and grow spiritually and keep their eyes on the true goal? The race that is set before us. You see how he said the race that is set before us. You can see it right there. We have to look at it's in the race that is set before us. That's what we have to look at. It's not about a short-lived in-game reward, glimmering, attractive, distracted from a path. Victory lies in perseverance and resilience and continuing our spiritual growth along the way. So we need to run this same race, this divine game, and not aim at dismiss the points, but the patience and persistence. So we need to level up our spiritual selves, reduce our burdens, and rely on the divine game master, Jehovah. The finish line isn't the end. See, that's the catch. Because the finish line is not the end. It's the true rewards lies in the journey. And the spiritual maturity we gain along the way. The aim is to play the game not for shiny rewards, but the sheer love of the spiritual progress for the joy of running the race that is set before us. Look at it again. 1 Peter chapter 4, verse 18. If the righteous scarcely be saved, where shall the ungodly and the sinner appear? You see, it's asking the question. It keep asking the question. But now having this transverse, this allegorical landscape, I can say. The divine game, the spiritual marathon. We can glean into the deeper understanding of this verse, echoing this reminder and steadfastly running the race, those who devoted to leveling up their spiritual self and discarding their allured, shiny, and fleeing reward. These fleeing rewards are stuff you're carrying to win the game, not only by a narrow margin. The perspective anew, it shines the light on the verse. It's transforming this saddened reminder. If victory is the spiritual game, it's barely achieved for those who invest in spiritual growth, then the prospect seems particularly grim for those who have halt in their tracks. Some people just give up, distracted by gleaning but hollowed in the game treasures. And we should have kept going. The game isn't just about the race or against time. It's the journey that calls for patience, persistence, the ability to see beyond the short-lived winning. So in this journey of our hearts, it's located in the defines the ultimate destination. It's key. It's right before us. So that's why I kind of kept that there. We look at this in Luke chapter 12, verse 34. For where your treasures is, there will your heart be also. Some people want the shiny stuff. Some people want those temporary things. This is where we get caught up. See, if our heart is anchored on temporary treasures of the game, then we are chained to fleeing the superficial. However, our hearts are linked to the spiritual growth, to divine reliance and running the race in patience, to secure internal, the true victory that extends beyond the game. Because we go beyond the game. Let me show you this. To elaborate on this a little bit more, we're going to look at something. In Luke chapter 18, and find this in 25. If we miss so much stuff out of this life, we didn't miss the wealth, power, and everything. Yahushua, Jesus said this. He said, for it is easier for a camel to go through an eye of a needle than a rich man to enter into the kingdom of God. We didn't carry so much stuff. We can't even get through the door. We didn't miss so much stuff. We can't. The treasure's here. We couldn't walk by the treasure. We had to have it. For it is easier for a camel to go through an eye of a needle than a rich man to enter into the kingdom of God. If you want to look at that in a serious way, go to a store and buy you a threading needle, or get you a threading needle. Then go to the zoo, and right where you got to put the thread through the needle, I want you to look at that thread through the needle that got to go through the needle, and I want you to look at the camel, so you can see both of them in physical reality. And then I want you to see, he's telling you, and this is Jehovah speaking through Yahushua. He's telling you it's easier for that camel that you're going to physically see can go through that eye of the needle than you, if you rich, can get into the kingdom of heaven. That's what he's telling you this right up front. So this offering the counterpoint of the world's prevailing standards. So what does it mean to be rich in the grand scheme of the divine game? Is material wealth the ultimate achievement, or can it be burdensome or a distraction in an illusion of success? Which one is it? It isn't to suggest that the wealth is inherently negative, but rather it prompts the question where the riches lie in our priority list. Where do it lie in there? That are they the ultimate objective of the game, or fleeting, short-lived? Interesting, isn't it? Temporary boasts and self-contradictions become impediments of our spiritual journey. Do it or don't it? Are we in the quest for worldly wealth, overlooking true treasures? Those spiritual growth, divine reliance on enjoying running the race and patience. Did we guess that? Those who worth billions today. Billions. You got people worth billions today. I want you to really think about that. Billions today. They command a certain degree of respect, power, and they carry influence. And they just have money. I don't think people really ponder how serious that is. Just because they have immense money, now they have a degree of power, respect of all people based on that alone. Yet their spiritual wealth isn't measured in dollars, but in depth of relationship with Jehovah. So the maturity of one's spiritual character is the commitment to run the race that's set before us, not for the applause to finish the line, but the sheer love of the journey. So as we ponder on this, we have to apply wisdom to the divine game, the concept of a billionaire's wealth. In this game, again, we have to look at the divine concept of a billionaire's wealth. So if we can perceive and shift the value, the encouragement of us to refine that we view as rich and reprioritize our objective, and we can consider our spiritual inventory, and it invites us to become billionaires and not in the temporary earthly wealth, but an everlasting spiritual treasure. Kind of slick, ain't it? It's pretty slick, ain't it? I know that was a slick deal, but that's what we want to do. That's what we want, because that's the grand cosmic ledger, the spiritual investment that holds this far greater value that transcends, and it transcends the worldly in wealth and doing anything with it. So it offers us the divine life that goes beyond the realm to eternal kingdom, the triumph of the spiritual game, and it measures us to accumulate, but much we have this growth spiritually, and we can run this race and utterly by the temporary rewards that's focused on the real goal. So technically, I can sit there and say, see, I might not look cute here, but I'm real cute in the banking God. See, now you can say that. They say, okay, yeah. See, people sit there like, they look at these billionaires, they say, oh yeah, no matter how they look, they'll sit there like, oh, he's cute or she's cute. But I tell you what, I'd rather be cute with the bank of God than be cute on the bank here on earth. That's a whole different, because that's eternal wealth up there. This here is temporary wealth. Thieves, moths, everything can get with it. That one is protected. You even have where these dumb dudes with the Churches of Christ. They had I believe it was over 120 million stole out their own reunion for their retirement. Why? They stored up their wealth here, but they preachers, but their wealth was stored up here, not in the kingdom. So we need to meditate on the divine game of life, aiming to become billionaires. See, are we aiming to becoming billionaires of the world? That's something you need to think about. Or billionaires of spirit. Which one are you looking to do? You want to be a billionaire of the world? You want to be a billionaire of the spirit? See, which treasures brings us closer to the triumph victory or in our journey? So with our riches, we can truly enrich us. Let's look at something. Let's go down. Let's go back over here to Sirach. I want to go back to Sirach. I told you we're going to be dealing with Sirach a lot. Sirach 5:3. So let's look at this. It says, say not, who shall control me for my works? For the Lord will surely avenge thy pride. Yeah, that's a solid statement. That's a solid statement. The reason why this is more direct, as I journey through this, if we want to say this metaphorical game, it continues to derive everything. So it helps us to understand the true nature of our path. Serves to compass back, directing back, enlighten our verse, and that we see right here. We're going to go all the way down to 5, as I said. We're going to go down to 5, as I said. But who shall control me for my works? You see it right there. Who shall control me for my works? Drawing from the insight of the journey thus far, we've done revisited this. Wisdom with a fresh perspective now. Here, the seasoned player is reminded, again, the true nature of our path. Lean not into your own understanding or perceive in-game strength. Instead, they are to encourage and disengage from alluring yet transcend power-ups in distraction, focusing on aligning ourselves with the guide of the divine Grand Master. Who is the Grand Master? Jehovah. We've been saying it. I've been saying this since the beginning. So these scriptures cautions us against dialoguing in the ways in our hearts of those who is directed towards temporary, in-game rewards and from the goal of spiritual growth in reliance on divine provisions. That's what it does. So now we can understand the reminder. The players of the game sometimes get under, they get in this game. And it says, and say not, who shall control me for my works? Wow. We don't even know how serious that is. Who shall control me for my works? For the Lord will surely avenge thy pride. Yeah, you done missed all this money now. Who gonna control me now? I got money. I got money. You ever remember when you was a kid? Because some of us did it. And you done gained $1. And then you get around your friend, I got $1. I got $1. And now all of a sudden you the big man temporarily until the ice cream truck comes. When the ice cream truck comes, you gonna go right back to that same level because you gonna get that $1 to that ice cream truck man, and then you gonna eat the ice cream, and then you back broke. It is what it is. It is what it is. So that's what we have to look at. It'd be temporarily lived. Verse 4, say not, I have sinned, and what harm hath happened unto me? For the Lord is long suffering. He will in no wise let thee go. Exactly the point. Exactly the point. This brings us to tell us that we can see this warning coming in complacency of our game. thinking we can collect enough points in the game and slack off, only to lose our progress later. Think about it. To lose our progress is better for us if we felt like we had enough in reading a few books or a few lessons and being here for years, to only later be surprised with challenging questions and understandings that's presented to you. I'm going to say that again. See, some of us, we feel like even here, we have enough. Reading, study, some of the lessons, here for years, to only later be surprised with challenging questions, understanding that's presented to you. Spiritually, this is a warning against feeling too secure on earthly possessions or accomplishments. It reminds of material wealth and success cannot protect us from the possible troubles or guarantees of eternal happiness. So when dealing with possessions, indeed, we are ever witnesses. Same as like dog training in its master, or a child instructing their parent. It's an unusual concept, but it pushes us to think both the dog and the child are seen as being who are taught and guided, not the ones instructed or led. However, in this complex dance of learning and teaching is often the learner seeks to become the teacher and the teacher becomes the learner. That's plain stupidity. But it's important to remember, the dog's skill and obedience are directed from the reflection from the quality of his training, just as a child's character understanding the mirrors of upbringing that they has been given. Consequently, the greatness of the child or the goodness of the dog is not solely inherited on the attributes, but it's largely shaped by the mold by their desires. Don't ever forget that. As we navigate through these complexities of life, this is a reminder of fundamental truth, teachings and trainings and reflections on our knowledge, patience, wisdom. It makes the complacent. So we are being the best students to become the true guides who depend on our leadership and our treasures that we're seeking on here on earth. So I want you to think about this. I want you to think about a couple of things here. We're going to see here in Proverbs. Proverbs chapter 1, verse 32. For the turning away of the simple shall slay them, and the prosperity of fools shall destroy them. Exactly what's going on. But I want to couple that with a couple of things. We're going to go over here to Luke 12:15. I'm going to go over here. And this is why. And he said unto them, take heed and beware of covetousness, for a man's life consisted not in the abundance of the things which he possessed. Are we seeing the point? Let me bring it a little bit closer. We're going to go back to Sirach. We're going to go closer. 5:8. We got to go closer. Set not thy heart upon set upon good unjustly gotten. Exactly what's going on. For they shall not profit thee in the day of calamity. No, it's not going to happen. Look at all three together. I want you to pay attention to what's going on, because what we are looking at right here is fully underscores the translate ultimately unfulfilling nature of material wealth acquired dishonestly or unjustly because the way you acquired it. This wisdom encourages us to prioritize the ethical behavior and the righteous over dishonest gain. So these verses can be parallels and illuminated by several other verses I can easily pull. This is why it's so important. And we'll move down a little bit further. In Proverbs chapter 10, verse 2, saying the same thing. Treasures of wicked. 1 second, my thing went out for a second. 1 second. Let me see. Oh, it stopped. Let me it reopen. Yeah, so let me go back. It went out for a second. Sorry about that. For the treasures of wickedness profit nothing, but righteousness deliver from death. It's right there. You see, this reinforces the statement, even from Sirach, the unjustly acquired wealth offers no benefit, particularly in the times of crisis or judgments. Instead, righteousness act in accordance with the divine laws and principles in the true deliverance and protection. Tells us right up front. Right up front. But it gets better. Oh, it gets better. Let's build on this because we want to get some wisdom. So we're gonna stay in Proverbs for 1 second. Proverbs chapter 21, and we're gonna look at verse 6. 21:6. As it says, the getting of treasures by lying tongues. Getting of treasures by a lying tongue is a vanity tossed to and fro of them that seek death. Well, you trying to seek death? Yeah, you are. You just don't know you are. See, a lying tongue, to understand what a lying tongue is a language, a unity agreement with flesh. It's vanity, tossed to and fro, that seeks death. So the thought further emphasizes the short-lived and the dangerous nature of wealth, gained through dishonest means. Through dishonest means. That's what this is doing. In fact, thinking about that, I want to pair something with this. We're going to go over here to Matthew. I want to go to Matthew. And pick this up over here. Verse 26. And question yourself with this. For what is a man profited if he should gain the whole world, these treasures, and lose his own soul? Or what shall a man give in exchange for his soul? This here, you need to go and take your time, think about this. Truly think about it. Don't sit there. See, a lot of people just, once they see a message, they get a lesson, and then they just walk away. Oh, that was good, and walk on about their business. No, you need to meditate on what you learned and what you acquired. Because this is a potent reminder of the frailty that pursuing material wealth at the expense of one's spiritual well-being. It poses an essential question. What benefit is they're gaining worldly riches and losing their spiritual essence of their soul? So let's think about something. I want to think about something. Let's everybody, I want you to put in your mind. Close your eyes. I want you to put this in your mind. I want you to look at a scale. I want you to think of a scale. But the scale is unbalanced. So I want this in your mind. The scale is unbalanced. So the image of life as a scale, in one side it holds their material wealth and worldly accomplishments on one side of the scale. On the other, their spiritual richness and their moral integrity is on the other side. For those who gain the world, the scale tips drastically towards the material wealth. So if your material wealth on that side is really strong over there, now your scale is going to be tilted over towards the material gains. Everybody with me on that? I want you to stay with me on that. And if the tip does that, then we know it's an imbalance, because on the imbalance, it causes the spiritual side to be lacking, symbolizing the loss of one's soul. So the grand scheme of life, the weight of the spiritual richness is far more significant and everlasting than the material wealth. That's what happens. That's why I want you to see that. So if you're more concentrated on gaining the richness of this world in the world accomplishments, you cannot say that you chasing the same dream, the same avenue as seeking God. That's an impossibility. That's an impossibility. People say, well, I even them out. How? You even them out based on your own understanding. It's just like chasing a mirage. People, a person lost in the desert. Think about it. Lost in the desert. I tell you what, close your eyes. Close your eyes. We're gonna do this again. And you lost in the desert, but you chasing in a mirage of oasis. You're driven by thirst. This is what you're driven by, thirst. So the oasis represents the material wealth, the worldly pleasures. I want you to keep that in mind. The oasis represents the material wealth, the worldly pleasures. But the more they chase it, the further they stray from the real salvation. Finding a genuine source of water or the path out of the desert, that's why the similarity, this relentless chasing worldly riches can lead you further away from spiritual path and deeper into a spiritual barrenness. You're not getting nothing. Why? It's a mirage. So the closer you think you get to it, the further it's away because it's not there. I'll tell you what. Let's take it another way. Let's say you got a trophy. We're going to say a hollowed trophy. Keep it this way. The person winning the grand trophy filled with precious gems and gold, symbolizing the world of success. Do it this way. So externally, the trophy seems valuable and desirable. However, inside the trophy is hollow and empty. Have anybody ever looked inside of a trophy? A broke one is hollow and empty. It symbolizes the soul is devoid from spiritual richness. So the external wealth may look impressed outside, but inside is hollow. The person is holding the trophy holds a hollowness within. So as same as life, they don't have no amounts of the external wealth that can compensate the emptiness inside, the soul nourishment and the spiritual growth. It's all there. So to understand the same thing, what we're using over here. So what profits a man to gain the whole world? It's hollow. It's hollow. That's the point. That's the point I'm trying to make to you. To where we can see it. And we'll go after everything after the whole world, but we're going to lose our own soul. We exchanging the world for our soul. It's right there. So let's go back down. We're going to look at this. In Luke chapter 12, verse 15. Same thing. It says, so he said to them, take heed and beware of covetousness. For a man's life consists not in the abundance of things which he possesses. No, surely don't. Surely don't. So we keep getting caught up. We have to grasp things spiritually. We have to grasp everything spiritually. Let's see what we can do. We trying to reel this in, and we want to imagine the same way people be in a crowded room full of precious artifacts. I want you to think you're in this room. Precious artifacts, luxurious items, piles of gold. But all this symbolizing what? Material wealth. All of it. But yet there's no space to move, to breathe, or to live. We in this with all these artifacts. So spiritually, this room represents a life cluttered with material possessions, but without and lacking spiritual fulfillment. You don't have. The treasures may be abundant, but the room, but in the room, or the life is stifling and unfulfilling. So with this illusion of a fullness, think of a person consuming a large amount of junk food. The same thing. You can consume all the junk food you want, but you might fill your stomach and provide temporary satisfaction. Think about that. But it lacks the nutrients necessary for the health and well-being, for health and well-being. I don't care. You can eat junk food all day, and it'll fill your stomach. You'll get full, but that's still a temporary satisfaction. Just like when I had a temporary satisfaction when I was a kid. I told people about it. Same thing as I did. I used to get up 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. My mom used to make banana puddings, and she cooked hers, and they was off the hook. But what I do, I get up 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. I go eat a bunch of it because she'd divvy it out equally. So I didn't. Hey, it was 6 kids. I didn't choose. I went there. I'd go get me extra. I just do it 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. That's how I worked it. But the same thing is, that was a temporary satisfaction. I lacked the nutrients that was necessary for my actual true well-being. So the abundance of material that gives the illusion of contentment, but without spiritual richness. It lacks the substance of true nourishment in our lives. That's what I was doing. In fact, let's just do this. In Proverbs chapter 15, we're going to look at verse, no, we need 16. This one. In Proverbs 15:16, better is little that fear or desire the Spirit of God than treasure in trouble therewith. Yeah, makes a lot of sense. But let's look at verse 17. Better is a dinner of herbs where love is than a stock ox in hatred therewith. Yeah. This proverb is spiritual truth. It's modest. It's a fulfillment that's telling us about the material abundance of life filled with turmoil. Same with the food analogy. It aligns with the idea of simple meals consumed with love and gratitude is healthier, more fulfilling than extravagant feasts. This brings us back to the spiritual essence of our lives. Material possessions might provide temporary illusions of satisfaction, but our spiritual well-being that offers the true substance in lasting contentment. We are encouraged to prioritize our spiritual growth. For each and every one of us. And I encourage you to prioritize your spiritual growth over your material abundance. I want you to think about this, and as we're going down through here, think about something. Let's look at your cup or your bucket, but you're leaking. You're leaking. You're leaking. You know what I'm saying? Leaking. Your bucket's leaking. So the illusion of life is as the bucket. The material possessions of worldly riches can be seen as water poured into this bucket in us. However, if the bucket, meaning our soul, has a hole, it lacks spiritual fulfillment. No matter the amount of water you can fill it with, it's still going to underscore it need to be repaired to nourish the soul. Because if not, it's going to continually leak. It's going to continually leak. It's going to always go out. You're going to stay void. Let's show you something. To make sure we clearly get what I'm saying. Verse 10. It's saying this. He that loveth silver shall not be satisfied with silver. Let me read that again. He that loveth silver shall not be satisfied with silver. See, the reason why we sit there, I like to make points, but I like the scriptures to lead me to where I need to go. To just show you what's need to be done. In showing you here, if you love silver, the same as you got men, men who, the same thing, silver even trans over to women. He tell you don't multiply gold and silver. He tells you this. In Deuteronomy 17:17. Actually, I'll put it over there just so you can see it. Just so you can see it. And this is where we want to run. I got it purple for a reason. But it's telling, neither shall you multiply wives to himself, that his heart be turned not away. Neither shall you greatly multiply unto himself gold and silver. That's why I said that. But I want you to understand something, why he's saying this. And this is why it says that he that loveth silver shall not be satisfied. Now you same thing is, this is not good, because you have men, even today, men today, they'll sit there to where now the intimacy with women is not good enough. So they prefer to, they turn and they go towards men. And some of them like to mix it up with both. Nor he that loveth abundance will increase. This is also vanity. This the metaphor of the bucket as a whole. It teaches us to love and pursue material things. That's what it does. You'll never be satisfied. Much like the leaky bucket, you'll never be filled. It emphasizes the vanity in trying to attain fulfillment through accumulating material possessions, underscoring the importance of addressing the hole in a bucket, which is a spiritual void of our lives. Rather than continuously trying to fulfill more than water, we run into this. Run into this. Beware of covetousness. And with that, it puts us in a bad position. It puts us in such a bad position, it's unreal. In 1 Timothy, we'll see this over in 6 and 9. Talks a little bit more about what's going on. But they that will be rich fall into temptation. I'm only pausing to make you think about it. They that be rich fall into temptation. Why? Because now you have more money to do more things. You have more money to do more things. This is why it's so important to understand what is going on here. This is why it's so important about this. He that rich fall into temptation, in a snare, and into many foolish and hurtful lusts, which drown men in destruction and perdition. Exactly what the point is. Exactly what this point is. We'll fall into temptation. Some people, they'll get more money and then they'll fall out of what's the norm and they want to go into start experimenting. This says this symbolic correlation. We find ourselves, and some people, have you ever considered the game of Monopoly? It used to be one of my favorite games. Monopoly. And the key to the game was to amass wealth and property, but often players become so obsessed with this game, a gain in wealth and more, they overlook the fact of just a game. It's just a game. But players start getting upset. And you can even look it up today. You see people even being shot and killed over this game. This game. When they lose, or they overly joy when they win, forgetting the real value of the game, the fun and strategy of the game, and the camaraderie with it. So too their pursuit of wealth, and it leads to these harmful situations, and they lose sight of what truly the importance of what the growth, what they can learn from that. It's a reminiscence of the pitfalls that becoming overly absurd of adults' careers. Same thing. Adults' careers, to where they will pursue their career and extent, and it overshadows the value of this interpersonal relationship with spiritual growth. It's like becoming engrossed in researching and publishing papers and you forget the purpose of knowledge and enlighten the benefit of humanity. So when you balance these things and you try to balance them out, it goes towards your career and accomplishment, and it costs your personal growth and your spiritual fulfillment. And we risk falling into the snare, much like this given warning here. But they that will be rich fall into temptation. You think about that. This is what we do. This is why it's so important we pay attention to what we're doing. In fact, let's look at something. In Sirach chapter 11, and we're gonna take the time in this, and it says that wax rich by his weariness and pinching, and this is the portion of his reward. Whereas he says, I found rest, and I will eat continually of my goods, and yet he knoweth not the time shall come upon him, and that he must leave those things to others and die. A true story though. It was a man, he was money, but he was going to leave his wife. Actually nothing, but as he said, he was going to die, and he died. But he said he wanted to die with all this money in his casket. So the wife she honored it. She actually honored it. So what they did, she wrote a check for what the amount that he had. She wrote a check and put it in the casket for the amount that he had. The problem he had is he had to be able to wake up and cash it. So she fulfilled what he wanted. He just can't cash the check. But some people get so caught up. That's what happened. He found rest, and he eat continually of my goods, and knowing not the time should come upon him that he must leave those things to others and die. I'm telling you, people do it. People do it. As we invest in more and more into this materialistic pursuit or spiritual ones, which ones are we doing? We're creating a legacy of banknotes and a legacy of wisdom, spiritual richness. Which one are we doing? Is our focus on short-lived physical richness or long-lasting spiritual wealth? Which one are we doing? Are we moved towards the pivotal verse that we always see? Yeah, actually in verse Revelation, I want to take you there. I want you to see this. In Revelation chapter 3, verse 17. Because thou sayest, I'm rich. A lot of us say this. Say, I'm rich and increased with thy goods, and have need of nothing. I have need of absolutely nothing. And know not that thou art, A-R-T, in your perfection, in your beauty, wretched. He's telling you right there in front of you. But most people say, thou art wretched. And they thinking A-R-E, and it's saying A-R-T. Thou art wretched, and miserable, and poor, and blind, and naked. It's right there in front of you. Right in front of you. Spiritually, this is a critique of our complacency and our self-delusion. That's what we are. We are self-delusion. It addresses that we think are spiritually wealthy and have need of nothing. Yet spiritually, we impoverished, blind, a state of desolate, vulnerable. We all screwed up. Some of us think that the scene of the story, you can sit there and you can see these preachers. Even when I seen they had the preachers of LA, one guy, Ron Gibson, and he telling people how to hold on to my $5,000 coat, this and that. But the scene still showed you all these preachers in new clothes. Preachers believe that they are adorned in the finest garments. They're parading around really naked in front of their subjects. I want you to think about that. You have many men, they come up and they get before you, and they get before people, and they're dressed in these suits and high-end clothes and things, and you sit there and I'm talking cost thousands of dollars. And they'll just parade around all these subjects. And they parading around naked in front of all their subjects. His illusion is being dressed richly. That's his illusion. He's dressed richly. But it renders him obvious of his actual state spiritually. We are like preachers when we focus only on material wealth, but it's obvious of our true spiritual state. Hopefully y'all understand this. So we can consider the concept of imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome is the experience in believing that we're not as confident as others perceive that you are to be. So this physiological pattern that we can make in most accomplished individuals feel like a fraud. Similarity to where we focus on accumulating material wealth while neglecting our spiritual growth. We might be present in the image of success in this world, but internally, we're empty, disconnected. Let me show you this here. We're going to go back over here to Wisdom of Solomon, and we'll look at something in chapter 5, verse 8. What have pride profited us? What have it? What have pride profited each and every one of us? Tell me. That's a question that you need to answer, because he's asking the question. What have pride profited us? Or what good have riches with our vaunting brought us? That's a question. That's the question that needs to be answered. In fact, when we look at verse 9, it tells us a little bit more. All those things are passed away like a shadow, and as a post that has by. Wow. Whatever it profited us, nothing. Absolutely nothing. Not one single solitary thing. Just like a shadow. We can consider a couple of things as we're coming down to this. In Matthew chapter 6, and looking at verse 19. We come back. We look at this. And it's telling us right up front. It says, lay not up for yourselves treasures upon earth. Lay not up treasures upon earth, where moth and rust do corrupt, and where thieves break through and steal. A clear warning while we run in this race is telling you It don't make no sense to get these little shiny toys, little shiny things. And he's telling us even more when we get here. It says, but lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust do corrupt, where thieves do not break through and steal, nor steal. But he goes on more. Because he's telling you exactly for where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. So as we going through this thought-provoking conversation, we want to consider, what are you rich in? What are you rich in? Are you rich in possessions but poor in spirit? Are you clothed in riches but naked in spiritual growth? In reflection of these questions can prompt a deeper understanding and spiritual state, helping us to strive not just for worldly wealth, but for spiritual abundance. Showing you this, as I said, we were going to go through Sirach, and we're looking at Sirach chapter 5. We're looking at the last verse we need to see. Looking at 5:5. I want you to think about that. Concerning preparation, be without fear to add sin to sin. Consider something. I want you to think about something. Consider the image of a child who, after disobeying their parents, approaches them without regret or intention to change, but with a defiant attitude, unwilling to admit their fault to make amends. The child is not only compounding their intentional disobedience, but with this disrespect, but they're missing out on the opportunity for reconciliation and growth that comes from sincere understanding and remembrance and changing their behavior. So this is the same similar approach many of us take on the mercy seat of God. We should, with humility, acknowledging our faults, expressing our sincere desire to do better, to fear, as it mentioned. But many of us don't fear punishment. It tells you that. We come concerning preparation without fear. Without fear. In fact, actually, let me tie something. I want to show you this. I want to put this with it to where we can't get around it. In Sirach chapter 17, looking at verse 24. 24, I think I'm going to grab 25 with it. I'm going to grab 25 with it. It says, but unto them that repent, he granted them return, and comforted those that fail in patience. Return to the Lord and forsake thy sins. Make thy prayers before his face and offend less. The reason I want you to see that, I want you to understand what we're going through. See, a lot of us still going to approach God, and that's how a lot of people teach, just saying, oh, I'm going to accept him as my Lord and Savior. Okay, I'm cool with you now. It's not that. This advises us to repent to where we can be granted our return. Return to the Lord for the sakes, and we need to forsake sin. Make our prayers before the face, and be offend less. Just as Proverbs, the verse, this passage, it underlines the importance of sincere repentance. That's telling you about sincere remembrance on what we need to do. I'd like you to consider this thought, treating that spiritual journey, this one-way street, expecting and seeking God's mercy while offering nothing in our return is crazy. We need to sit there and understand what we're going through. We are ready to make the necessary course corrections, seek to add virtue to virtue. That's what we should be doing. rather than sin to sin. The choice is yours for the greater good in any worldly wealth that can be offered. So I just want you to remember the image of a child disobeying their parent approaches them without regret or intentions to change their defiant attitude, unwilling to admit their faults and amend their things. This child will not only compounding their intentional disobedience and disrespecting, but also missing out on the opportunity of reconciliation. The growth that will come with a sincere change of their behavior. So when we concerning this here in Sirach 5:5, many people will not fear the punishment, but rather sit there and think nothing more of it. And being in the eye of God holiness. So what I wanted you to see is a couple of things. We have them here, and we have it over here in Matthew 6:19 through 21. Lay not up for yourselves treasures on earth, but where moth do rust and corrupt, where thieves break through and steal. Lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven. So what this verse shows us, do not miss earthly treasures where they are susceptible to decay and thief, to where these things can come into you. Where we miss these things, this is a powerful reminder that transcends our nature and material possessions, piles on the comparison on what we're doing. While we're in pursuit of this earthly wealth, as humans' inclinations, we need to remember Sirach 5:5. We're advised not to approach God in fear of punishment. But our relationship with the divine, we should dread the reverence of our faith. In the profound is our motivation for obedience and righteousness. It stems from the divine, in addition to the critical and continuous remembering our actions, seeking forgiveness for this transformative power that he can give us. So this underscores the returning of the Most High detaches ourselves from iniquity. That's what he will always do. So as we seek this, so we navigate through this life, we strive to store up treasures that are eternal, fostering and living in relevance in relationship with God and continually seeking his forgiveness. So we need to remember the quality of our lives is to determine not only by our material wealth, but the depths of our spiritual richness. So let us continue to cultivate the love and forgiveness and righteousness and cherish this truth, eternal treasure that he blessed us with. So the same thing is running the race for treasures, but where are you storing them up? So hopefully you guys understood that. As we clearly continue to go through this journey called life. So the same as I was saying, this afternoon at 3, we will be going through, we will be having a language biblical law class at 3. So everybody just make sure you be on the lookout for the email, because you're going to get an email for the class. Now the link is the same link from last week, but you will be receiving the link for the class. But just make sure that you're there, and then anybody that's not there after the 5-minute mark, we do lock the class, because we think it's highly disrespectful to where people just decide I'm gonna come when I come or whatever, and that's a personal pet peeve of mine. I think it's highly disrespectful. So the same thing is, so hopefully that you guys seen that, and the same as we said before, that if you guys looking and somebody is pregnant, they looking to get a true Hebrew name, these names was retranslated from the Atlantic slave trade. You can actually get the book now on Amazon, where you have the true Hebrew names, which these people are actual names. You can go to the Atlantic slave trade, see the name, but you can actually get the meanings of those names. And you can see them right there. So they're all right there for you. So hopefully with that you guys take care of that. But what I want to do is thanking each and every person and meditate on what was taught. That's your key. Meditate on what was taught. And as we continually move forward, I have this other one. If you will give me 1 second, I do have a Zoom I do need to do. So I'm going to do this real quick. Give me 1 second. And I'm going to put that in there because I do have a part that I need to do. So let me take care of this real quick. And I'm going to put this in there in 1 second so we can have a quick meeting. And this is, anybody can come back there, but I just want to have a quick meeting for a few people. And you'll see it in here 1 second. Okay, so if you refresh, you can see the link is in the description right now. But what it is, we have a lot of people who was trying to join over with us on some other studies that we're doing, but then they ask some other questions on other things. So if you choose you want to come back there, the link is right now in the description, and you're more than welcome to come in the back. If you want to meet me, come in the back, meet me. I'm nobody special, but if you want to meet, we can meet and greet from there. So hopefully, I'm just trying to make sure I got everything else there. I'm trying to make sure I got everything else there. Let me see. Yeah. I'm trying to do that one there and this one here. Okay. So with that, we're going to end here, and then the same thing today. We do have class today. So with that, I'll say to each and every person, until next time we meet again, to each and every person, shalom.